Hi, and welcome to the UK and Ireland 2020 BNI conference. My name is Davies, and I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to open this year's event. But before we go any further, before I get going with stories and dad jokes and all that kind of thing, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Well, actually, we can't talk about the elephant in the room because we're not in a room together. We should all be with one another at a conference venue somewhere in the exotic climes of Southampton. But instead, we're sat in offices and living rooms all over the country. So, let's just get it out there. COVID sucks, right? COVID absolutely sucks. So it's had a massive impact on everything we've done in the last few months. So we just need to address that. I don't think any of us in our 5-year plan had, in 2020, I wanted to work out what childhood ice lollies blended best with vodka at 3 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon while sporting a post-apocalyptic haircut. But do you know what doesn't suck? What doesn't suck is the way that BNI as an organization responded to COVID, the way that your members have responded to COVID, and most importantly, the way that you have responded to COVID. You've done incredibly well. Now we get an opportunity to leave a legacy. And it's our job to lead our members and lead our leadership teams through the next 6 to 12 months so that we can leave a legacy in all of the local communities that we actively support by having chapters present in their economy. I want you to get the absolute most out of the next couple of days. You've invested a lot of time and you're going to invest a lot of effort. And I want to ensure you take the most out of it. And to do that, we need to write stuff down. So if you look in your workbook, there's a couple of blank spaces there where you can fill in some words. And then there's a line under each of those. And I want you to do two things. I want you to write down for one thing that you would like to learn. So if you could take away one learning from the next few days that's going to help you either in your BNI business or your own business, what's that going to be? I want you to write that down for me. And the next one is one that we very rarely consider. But I want to know what the one thing you would like to teach others is. You see, we've benefited massively from peer-to-peer learning over the last 6 months. We've had best practice calls each week. We've had international calls. And some of our very best and most productive and effective ideas have come from when one of our contemporaries, one of our colleagues has said, hey, we've tried this here. It works really well. And we've bled it out across the whole of the UK and Ireland. So I want to know what that one thing is that you're going to help others understand, that one bit of knowledge that you're going to impart. You see, I'm also going to give us an opportunity to write your legacy, what you want your legacy to be later. But the good news is that everyone has been going through the same stuff. So everyone in the world has been going through the same struggles, the same hardships. And often it's not what we're going through that matters, it's how we respond to it. Jim Rohn, a famous American sales trainer, said, it's not the direction of the wind, it's the way you set your sail. And what we've seen is the people that have thrived, the businesses, our BNI members, our BNI directors that have thrived during this period, it's because of the way they've reacted to it. So they've pivoted their message, they've changed up their business, and they're going to come out a lot stronger. Whilst researching this presentation, I've been looking for some really inspirational stories from around the world of people who have been affected by lockdown and the pandemic. And the one thing I've realized is that we're all pretty similar. So there's one story in particular of two very young lovers. They're in a relationship. One's based overseas in an army base, and the other is in lockdown at home. And I'm going to share a few conversations that they've had. So pay attention. You're going to need to read this as we go through. See, a fairly common conversation. And I don't know about you, but face masks and the effectiveness of face masks have been, one of our most spoken about topics out there. And these two are exactly the same. In fact, I don't want to boast. However, I have over 2,000 friends on Facebook, and I know at least 12 of them personally. Isn't that how Facebook works? And with all my motivational videos and quotes, my most interacted post this year was this one. And I'm just going to leave that kind of hanging there for you. Face masks seem a really hot topic of conversation all over the world. And the good thing about face masks is there is a face mask for every occasion and for every person. So did you realize that there is a vegan face mask? I mean, I didn't know there was a vegan face mask. I didn't realize there was a face mask for chocolate lovers, but there is definitely one of those. And there's even a face mask for those people who really don't get how face masks work. But my favorite of all face masks is the ones where you get to dress up as your heroes. The ones where you get to take on the persona of someone you adore and you admire. So I've ordered this face mask. There's a weird side effect with this face mask that small children tend to stay away from you. But this is definitely the face mask that I've been rocking recently. And I think it makes me look very, very sophisticated. So Phil, I love you, buddy. But that's not the only thing that we have in common around the world. So I'm going to play the next half of the text conversation for you. You see, all pretty standard stuff. Now, I don't think any of us question the ability and the commitment of our key workers. I mean, the outstanding job that the NHS and emergency services have done during the pandemic. But I've had conversations with people where they're worried. They don't know what they would do if they were to report it, whether or not the hospitals could cope. People have stayed away from births and patients, relatives that are in hospital, and they just don't know the right thing to do. So we're all in the same boat. We're all going through this together, and these are unprecedented times. However, that conversation was not going on via text. That was from a series of letters from over 100 years ago between Hildreth Heine and Sergeant Kleber Hadley during the Spanish flu. But yet they have the same concerns and the same conversations. We use the word unprecedented. However, if you were to pick up a newspaper from that period, 100 years ago, the three hot topics: do face masks actually make a difference? Is the government telling us everything that they should? And is migration having an effect on the spread of the pandemic? And if you jump on the BBC News app, you'll find, do Facebook's work? Is the government telling us everything? And has free flow of immigration had an effect? The same subject. You see, history has a tendency of repeating itself. We've been here before. So rather than it being unprecedented, you'll actually find that these are pretty precedented times. We know what's going to happen by studying the past. And the thing is unless we learn the mistakes of the past, we're doomed to repeat them. It's a great saying, there are no new mistakes. There are new people making old mistakes, and there are old people making old mistakes. So what lessons can we learn from the past? Well, let's have a look at a few of the other pandemics. So if you look at the Black Death, by the way, much cooler name, you know, Black Death, COVID, they definitely had the copyright and the good names. So a 2-year period, and after the pandemic subsided, farm wages increased by 116%. And real wages in terms of skilled tradespeople increased by 42%. We then look at the Spanish flu in the UK. Building labourers' wages increased by over 34%. Now, before you jump down my throat, I know that there are some economists in the audience. We try to vet them. We try to keep them to their accountancy exhibitions and conferences, but every now and then a few of them sneak through the door. And they might be there thinking, well, that's down to hyperinflation. There were less people there to do the jobs, so supply and demand pushed up wages, and then it spiraled out of control like hyperinflation does. And that could apply to those three figures, but it wouldn't apply to that one. House prices increased by 20% following the Spanish flu. And when we look at America, we look at some of the major cities, Chicago, New York, LA, San Francisco, and other major cities in the US saw significantly higher economic bounce back and growth following. Let me just reiterate that. Some of the major cities in America saw significantly higher economic regrowth following the Spanish flu. Well, why would that be? They had more poverty, less access to good education, good healthcare, but yet they saw an increase in economic regrowth. It's quite simple. They were quick to embrace the new technologies. And in 1919, 1920, those new technologies were electricity. They were conveyor belt manufacturing. And what I mean by conveyor belt manufacturing is when you see those wonderful archive footages and pictures of Henry Ford's motor plant, where the cars are moving to different stations and everyone's doing their bit time and time again, speeding up production of cars and pushing down the cost of the finished product. What you don't realize is that that's happening all over America in major cities, from food production to mechanical engineering to textiles and clothing. Those are the new technologies that are being embraced. Now, the question is, have we embraced new technologies in BNI? Well, yeah, of course we have. So in a week, we transitioned over 300,000 BNI active and core group members to BNI Online in a week. We also gave our members access to the very best teachers and trainers from BNI all over the globe, some of the outstanding speakers in terms of life coaching and business strategy through our online learning platform, BNIU. And we're introducing new BNI groups into new communities, some of which would not have had access to BNI previously, by using online meeting platforms such as Zoom to find founder members and drivers in those communities that are going to leave a BNI legacy for years and years to come. And the great news is we're already seeing a result of the new technologies that we are embracing. You see, between April and July this year, we've seen a 75% increase month on month of a thank you for the business. So we've seen immediate bounce back. We've lost 16% fewer members year on year than this period last year. So our members really understand that they need BNI now more than ever. And they're going to be our very best ambassadors going out there and sharing their stories in their local communities. And in terms of outstanding months, August has been our best ever for new chapters. It says 24 years there. You may work out that's how long we've been going. It has been our best month ever. We have a real opportunity here to take BNI to brand new people and enhance our members' BNI experience. So the question, I know you've done amazingly well. Thank you. But how do we become legends? How do we become that person, that organization that people talk about for years and years to come as the reason that they still have a business, as the reason that they were able to take their company to the next level? Well, what we do to begin with is we work out what we want our legacy to be. And then we lead others through the process to help achieve their goals and our legacy. And there's a space in your book for you to write down what you want your legacy to be. Now, this is going to take a bit of thought, but the great news is the budget Greg Davies, also known as Brian Gates, has got one of the best accountability metrics that I've ever seen. And he's going to share that with you in the closing session of this year's conference. So please make sure you're there. But during the conference, have a think and work out what you want your legacy to be. Now, the good news is I already know what I want my legacy to be, because whilst researching some of the stories for this presentation, I found a letter. And it was really strange because it wasn't a letter from one of the pandemics. It was from a little known outbreak on a military base, another military story. But this one was special because this base was in my region. It was in the Second World War, and the military base in question was an air base, and it's Biggin Hill. Now, some of you know Biggin Hill. It was instrumental in the Battle of Britain. It used to train a load of our pilots, and they used to take off, and they used to fight the Luftwaffe over the English Channel and the Kent countryside. I've recreated the letter because it was really difficult to read, and I'm just going to read it to you now. My dearest Suzanne, I hope this letter finds you well. I miss you and the children dearly, and hope you're keeping safe. I can finally confirm that my flight orders have come through. I really shouldn't be telling you this as correspondence may be checked, but I will be testing a new 2-seat version of the Spitfire. It will revolutionize the war effort as we can train new pilots in safe skies without the risk of enemy engagement. Unfortunately, I've been showing signs of a recent virus, and I've been placed into quarantine until my flight time for safety reasons. It does mean that I will miss my birthday celebrations. But I've heard a rumor that my regional commander is arranging a ride-by so I can in some way enjoy the festivities. Please stay safe. Please stay well. Yours forever, Christopher.
Again, yeah, lovely.
Frank Trotter always comes back.
Thank you, guys. Conditioning, guys. Bless.
I'm a little love song. Right, Chris. Oh, fantastic.
You may have noticed that wasn't a Second World War test pilot. That was the wonderful Chris Williams, an area director consultant for support within my region, but also a long-term member of BNI. You see, it was Chris's 60th birthday during lockdown, and his wonderful wife, also the area director for support, who you'll be hearing from later today, had organised the very best 60th birthday party from him, with music and food and people flying in from all over the world. And as was the case with a lot of us, COVID got in the way. We were able to organise a drive-by for Chris. Some of those members drove over an hour to drive past him for 2 minutes. They baked cakes, they had balloons, they bought him presents. As you saw right at the end there, Jeff, a double glazer from the Churchill chapter, had spray painted a tarpaulin with Happy 60th Birthday Chris on the side. You see, Chris is a very special man. He's a very special member in our region. And our fellow members wanted to show him how highly regarded he was. We wanted to show him how highly regarded he was. And that could have been one of 100 stories I could have told you about the way that our members have reacted during these times of crisis. I could have told you about the window cleaner who walked into Tesco's and filled up a trolley with essentials and food and the basics that a family needs to survive, put his own hand in his own pocket and paid for it, and then delivered that shopping to a member who he had heard was going through a really tough time. He knocked on the door, he left for shopping, and he walked away. He didn't do it because he wanted recognition or reward. He did it because he wanted to help others. I could tell you about the members that spent hours upon hours helping the less technologically advanced and confident members of our region to get on to BNI Online, so that they could continue being part of this wonderful community that we've created, rather than being stuck at home in a one-bedroom flat on their own. You see, I love it when people earn a lot of money from BNI. I celebrate success when people buy a new car, a bigger house, or sport a wonderful Rolex. However, I want my legacy to be when people are suffering and people are facing hard times, our members step up and the light of humanity shines from members of our chapters. That's what I want my legacy to be. That's what I want our members to do. And you may be sat there thinking, well, that's not my legacy. My legacy is currently this, and I want to change my legacy. And the good news is you can. And I'm going to end today's session by telling you a story. And I'm going to take you on a little journey, and I need you to use your imagination. So I want you to think about the late 1800s, the 19th century, and I want you to imagine you're in Paris. You can hear accordion music, there's a smell of fresh coffee, and you can put any other French stereotypes that you would like to in there. So if you want a man in a stripy top with a beret with onions pushing a bike down a cobbled road, you go for it. It's your imagination. But sat at a table enjoying his morning coffee is a 19th century millionaire. And he was a millionaire in the 19th century. You imagine how much money he'd have today. And the way that he kept up to date with the news in the world was to read the obituary section, because that's where his contemporaries were listed, and that's how he could judge his achievements against theirs. And as he was flicking through the pages of obituaries, he stopped. He came across his own name. But worse than that, under his own name was the phrase, Le marchand de mort est mort. The merchant of death is dead. And he continued reading, and it was the most scathing obituary about him that he could ever imagine. And he was insulted because in his mind, he had saved thousands of lives with his invention. You see, he grew up in a small mining town in the Alps. And during his childhood, many people had died through mine collapse and landslide. So he dedicated his life to science. And he came up with this product which allowed you to move rock from a rock face and remove it from a distance. But as is often the case with a noble invention, the military picked up on it, and whereas he saved thousands of lives in mining, millions of lives were lost due to the use of it on the battlefield. So he could have gone back to his coffee, he could have cried himself to sleep in his millions upon millions, but he decided to change his legacy. He decided that he was going to dedicate the next decade of his life into finding the very best and prominent experts in the fields of science and literature, bring them all together, and with a large donation of his fortune, which is still gaining interest today, he would recognize the very best that humanity had to offer. So when I say the name Alfred Nobel to you, you don't think about the Merchant of Death. You think about the Nobel Prize, the prize fund which recognizes the very best that humanity has to offer. He changed his legacy, and you can set your legacy to be whatever you want it to be. I'm going to end this presentation by thanking you for all you've done, by thanking you for all you continue to do, and all you will do in the coming weeks and months. To me, you are legends. And I'm even including Phil Berg in that. Thank you.